I realized I wanted to dig in. Like, if I get one shot at writing this thing, I don't want to fall short.
I mean, as a Bachelor fan and who's followed you, I had no idea that you had, in a struggle with painkillers. That was kind of a big revelation. What was it like writing about that and kind of knowing that that was going to be out there?
Tough, still tough. Yeah, because it's not like it's not like a beautiful season of life. But again, like as I was writing it, the one thing I had to continue to tell myself the whole time, because it takes a long time to write a book. It took me a long time. Maybe it doesn't take others. I don't know. It took me like 2 years. As I was writing it, and I would read back through like the things that I had, and then I had my ghostwriter who would help me dig in a little bit more, because there was a moment in time I kind of plateaued and was kind of going to surface on stuff, and so I had to bring him in towards the end to kind of help me pull out, like honestly kind of more or less deal as like a counselor, like ask the right questions. I realized I wanted to dig in. Like, if I get one shot at writing this thing, I don't want to fall short. And if I'm going to choose to go down the path that I did, which was speaking about insecurity, speaking about the things we're most shameful and guiltful for, speaking about the seasons of life that are darkest, then I have to speak about that myself. Like, I can't ask somebody to do something I'm not willing to.
Right.
And again, like, it's not uncommon. Like, people we know are struggling with this, and like people we know are, like I know what it's like to be in that world and to be thinking about one thing and one thing only, and trying to figure out where the next thing, where your next pill is, and that's in itself is super isolating. It definitely doesn't make you the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
And so, yes, hard. Yes, weird. Not a lot of people know it in my own life. Like, a lot of people don't know that side, because it's not something you like go around and parade around when you're in it. It's not something you talk about often.
Mm-hmm.
But healing in a lot of ways to write it and to know what's out there. And then also I hope that somebody out there can read it and go, hey, I'm in it too. And like, there's a way out, but also while I'm still in it, like, I don't have to be ashamed.
When you sat down to write this book, can you tell me a little bit about why you wanted to write it and what the maybe hardest part was, the easiest part, anything you learned about like the writing process?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the book started as like a journal. So coming off the show, and really before it even, there's a lot of like emotions and stuff I couldn't process internally. And so I was going to counseling, and they kind of recommended I write down like, hey, when I'm in my darkest place, like, what are the things I'm feeling? What kind of brought me there? And then when I was in my like best and most joyful times, like, what is it that brought me there? Like, kind of my feelings and how I'm feeling. So I started writing all this down, and I was recognizing some themes, like that when I was feeling my darkest, I was feeling disconnected, misunderstood, pushed aside. When I was feeling my most joyful, I felt like the people around me were in celebration. I felt like I was connected to the group. And so I kind of had written all these down, and then I was actually in Atlanta for a conference I was speaking at, and the team at HarperCollins came, and Thomas Nelson Publishers, and they came and they said, hey, would you ever want to write a book? And it was their Christian division that came to me, and so I knew that they didn't want like a bachelor tell-all, and it wasn't really something I was interested in. One, I don't have a lot to tell. Like, I don't have, and I don't think it's that interesting. Like, I don't think it would be a pursuit that, 4 years, at that point it was 4 years later, like that I'd be that interested in writing about. And so I wrote this, or I said to them, hey, I have this journal that I think might be relatable. Can we turn it into a book? And they were like, yeah, let's go for it. And so I started writing and trying to tie these messages together. And what I recognized is as I was writing it, and as I was asking the questions that I was writing about in the book, a lot of people started to respond with like, I felt that way too, or I feel disconnected, or I feel like I'm misunderstood, or I don't feel like I'm a part of the group. And so then I realized I had something. And so I kind of dug into that. Like, I kind of went with that angle of, all right, if so many people are feeling disconnected, why? And then is there a possibility of connecting again? Like, what is it we're missing? That was kind of my pursuit, my hope, and how I got there.
So one common theme that you reference a lot throughout is like your identity and being comfortable in yourself and what that really means. And as the Bachelor, you kind of got this unlovable Bachelor identity. For you, was that hard to kind of have like a label on you, even if it was something you related to? Like, how did that play into your journey and kind of figuring out who you were and that part of it?
It's interesting because at first it was hard because it kind of like reinforced all of my biggest insecurities.
Right. It's
That
like
was
a
the
big
label. Yeah,
label.
that was how I was feeling, and that was the label they were placing on me. And so at first, when I first heard that that was kind of like what they were going to promote it as, it was like, well, this doesn't help. Like, this just hurts me. Like, if I have to live up to the expectation of feeling like an outsider, like, I don't want that. I don't want to sit in that forever. It's not who I want to be forever. And so it was reinforcing those insecurities. However, fairly quickly, I recognized that that was like my biggest insecurity was also a thing that made me super relatable, which is intriguing, that the thing that I was most ashamed of, the thing that I had pushed down the farthest in my gut, like the thing I was hiding and trying to like fake and overcome, was also the thing that more like that made me most connected to others.
Right.
So yes, at first I was resentful for it. Yes, it concerned me, but then it became the thing that made me go, okay, if this is who I am and this is how people see me, does it make me a weirdo, or does it actually make me more connected? Which was a big revelation in my life.
Yeah.
Which made me also think that like, hey, if this is the one thing that like that I carry with me and that I feel ashamed of, I wonder how many others people's shame-filled and guilt-filled feelings and emotions are also the thing that connects them the most to other people as well. Which took me down a really interesting path of getting to speak into that in people's lives. Like, hey, what are you insecure about? Like, what makes you feel most different? Hear those things and then go, and then not try to prove it, but then to sit beside them and say, like, what if that's the one thing that makes you least different? Like, what if that's the one thing that doesn't make you different at all?